Hello everyone, Vera here, and welcome to Dearest Models, where I'll be looking at previous model projects in detail. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the show. Tim has a bit of a story to him, in that he has had two forms. In 2020, I bought a 3D printed body shell from MDM Models based on the Cloher Valley tram locos, and they kindly painted the model for me and even added an additional lamp on the front to sit on the smoke box. Once the shell arrived, I added red lining and LMS cabside numbers from Fox, along with the 3D printed mid-Sodor couplings and the crests, being finished off with a face from a wind-up Emily before placing the model on a Kato Engage 109 chassis. You can actually still buy this body shell from MDM, but it has developed a bit since I last got one. Around this time, the Dodge controller was in need of an engine to help construct a narrow gauge line on the Hilchester Railway. I was happy to oblige, and as you can see, Tim took to this task with gusto. He even attended the line's opening ceremony before returning home. Apparently he was quite popular with the locals during his stay. Unfortunately though, the hard work had taken its toll on him and he was no longer running well. So I ordered a replacement chassis for him, with his nameplates arriving soon after. However, I wasn't happy with him overall, as he was just too big compared to the other mid-Sodor engines, likely because the Cloher locos he's based on run on 3-foot gauge. And so with a heavy heart, Tim Mark 1 was sold. But that wasn't the end, oh no. Taking inspiration from Audrey's own model, I purchased a Gem Vari B kit from Dundas Models and managed to find what I thought would be a good chassis from the 009 Society. But as you can see, this was ridiculously too big. And in the end, I did manage to find a good chassis from eBay, which for some reason didn't quite fit, so I actually had to remove the valve gear from the model for it to fit properly. I don't really have any pictures of the kit's construction, sadly, but I started off by putting the boiler together, then positioning the cab and tanks before securing them all into place on the running board. Then I got round to adding the other fittings like the filler caps, the bunker, the dome, funnel, all that good stuff. And generally each part was filed and tested for fit before being painted and then actually glued together. I just thought it would be easier than putting it all together than trying to paint it all as one. The paints I use are Winsor & Newton acrylics, black and crimson. The gold itself was a metallic enamel from Humbrol, and these were all brushed on by hand. Next came the transfers, which were basically just a repeat of the Mark 1. I haven't mentioned this before, but for transfers I use Halford's clear lacquer spray to seal them in. And you do have to be careful with that, because if you do it too close then the transfers just wrinkle up and move and it all goes all horrible. For his actual couplings, I had to cut away some of the housing on the chassis, remove the old N-gauge couplings, and chopping up some spare Beamer ones I had lying around, I glued these into place. And that's Tim Mark 2 done. He does sit a bit wonky on the chassis, but I still love him. One more thing for those wondering why my Tim is number 8 while Audrey's model is number 7, the answer is really quite simple. For my mid-Sodor I have Freddy as the railway's number 7, being used primarily for the mountain road, so this just meant that everyone after him just got bumped up a number, and that's all there is to it really. And now it's time to reveal the bonus loco. John doesn't have a very long story compared to Tim. He's also a Gem Vari B kit, which was bought at the same time as Tim, And the idea of John was to serve as that mysterious red tram engine from Audrey's stock box, which we later found out to be Albert Mark III. Like with Jennings, I'd heard the name John floating around and just decided to stick with it. John's construction basically mirrored Tim's. I went through the exact same process, more or less, painting and testing each part for fit before gluing it together. The only difference being that I chose different fittings for the funnel and the bunker, etc. Something I forgot to mention with Tim, that I'll mention here, was the fitting of the handrails. This was something I actually struggled with a fair bit, trying to get these all the same length, and just getting them to stay in place was just an absolute pain for me. They're reasonably solid, but they have been known to break off now and again, like during the course of filming for this video in fact. Once the shell was fully painted, the next thing I did was add real coal to the pair of them. Then it was just a case of waiting for John's name transfers to arrive, which I ordered about the same time as Stanley's new ones. These were applied as soon as they arrived, along with all the other standard mid-Sodor brandings and fittings that I use. After that, poor John was stuck in limbo for a while as I was trying to track down a second chassis following Tim's completion. Eventually I did find one on eBay, once again removing the valve gear for it to fit properly, but this made John something of an oddity. It turns out there's actually a gear missing from the chassis to the front axle, meaning that it just rolls freely, and this actually makes him a 240 in contrast to Tim being an 060. Happily though, he sits much better on his chassis than Tim does. Unhappily however, he's not quite as good a runner as Tim due to the aforementioned wheel arrangement, so he does tend to stop on points a lot and isn't quite as powerful, and admittedly he doesn't get as many runs these days as he probably should do. But aside from that, that is John basically wrapped up. Well, that's about it for this video guys. Thank you very much for giving it a watch, and if you want to, you can check out my Twitter, I'll put the link in the description below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!